Hey guys! Tonight we dim the lights and step back in time, all the way to a cold, unforgiving morning in the medieval era. Imagine this. You're not in your comfortable bed anymore. The soft hum of modern life has been replaced by the rustle of straw and the distant bleating of sheep. A chill seeps through the thin walls of your hut, and the air smells of damp earth and wood smoke. You lie on a lumpy sack, a coarse wool blanket your only shield against the pre-dawn cold, and you can feel every ache in your bones. This is your reality now, a far cry from the life you know. The day hasn't even begun, and you already feel the weight of it, the constant, gnawing anxiety of what's to come. You are a serf, bound to the land and to your lord, with no real ownership over your body or your time. This isn't a holiday. It's a grueling, relentless existence you probably won't survive. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sound of a rooster, not a gentle alarm, but a harsh, piercing crow, rips you from your uneasy sleep. It's still dark outside, but the world is already stirring. Your muscles protest as you push yourself up, your joints stiff from a night spent on the hard floor. The small, smoky hut you share with your family is cramped, the air thick with the smell of unwashed bodies and yesterday's cooking fire. A quick splash of cold water from a bucket serves as your morning ablution, no warm shower for you. You pull on a rough linen shift and a simple tunic, the scratchy fabric a constant reminder of your station. This is the standard attire for a serf, designed for durability, not comfort. You tie a length of cord around your waist, and that's it. You're ready. No choices to be made, no styles to consider. Your world is one of stark necessity. As you step outside, the cold air bites at your cheeks. The village is just a few dozen huts clustered together, all looking just as dreary and ramshackle as your own. The central common area is a muddy, trodden space where a few pigs snuffle for scraps. Your husband is already tending to the family's small plot of land, a tiny fraction of the Lord's vast estate that you're allowed to work for your own sustenance. But first, you have your duties to the Lord. All of your time and effort belongs to Him first. The sky is beginning to lighten, casting a pale, pearly grey light over the landscape. You can see the grand stone walls of the Lord's manor house in the distance, a fortress of power and privilege that feels as remote as a different planet. One of the more interesting aspects of serfdom is the concept of gleaning. After the Lord's harvest, poor people were allowed to go into the fields and pick up any leftover grain. This practice, while seemingly charitable, was often a matter of survival for serf families, a way to eke out a little extra food for the lean months ahead. It was a formal rite, a small concession in a life of immense hardship. Historians still argue whether this was a true act of charity or simply a pragmatic way to keep the peasant population from starving and revolting. Either way, for you, it represents a brief and precious opportunity to fill your family's stomach. You join a small group of women, their faces etched with the same weariness you feel. There's a silent understanding, a shared resignation in the way you all move. A guard, a large man with a leather jerkin and a scowl, barks a command. He points toward the Lord's fields, a vast stretch of land where the golden stalks of wheat stand tall and proud. This is where your day will truly begin. The work is simple but grueling. You will bend, you will pull, and you will carry until your back screams and your fingers bleed. There is no joy in this labor, only a sense of grim purpose. The fact that the fruits of your labor will fill someone else's granary makes the effort even more bitter. You're a cog in a massive machine, a nameless part of a system that sees you as little more than a tool. Your worth is measured not by your thoughts or your feelings, but by your ability to work the land. And if you fail, if you falter, there are others ready to take your place. That, my friend, is the reality of being a female serf in the medieval world. You are not a person, you are a resource. And today, you are a very tired one. The biting cold is a constant companion as you begin the first task of the day. A group of you are sent to the stream, the water so icy it numbs your hands within seconds. You aren't there to fetch water for your own home. No, this is water for the Lord's kitchen, for his baths, for his brewing. The clay pots you carry are heavy, and the ground is slick with mud, a constant threat to your footing. You make trip after trip, your back aching with each load, the muscles in your arms burning. This isn't just about strength, it's about endurance, a test of how much your body can take before it breaks. It's a relentless, repetitive cycle, a chore that never truly ends because the needs of the manor are insatiable. Back in your hut, your own family's morning routine is just as bleak. Breakfast is a simple, coarse gruel made from barley, perhaps with a stray turnip or two you manage to scrounge. It's bland, thin, and serves only to quell the most immediate pangs of hunger, not to nourish or satisfy. A fun little tidbit is that bread was a staple for all social classes, but the quality varied dramatically. The Lord's family ate fine, white loaves made from sifted wheat flour, while your bread would be a dark, dense, and gritty loaf, often mixed with rye or even ground beans to make it stretch further. You swallow it down quickly, knowing that every calorie is precious, every morsel needed for the work ahead. As the sun begins to climb, you are directed to the fields. The air, once so cold, now feels raw as it cuts through your simple tunic. The tasks are varied and dictated by the season. Today, you are sowing seeds. You walk behind a man who uses a rudimentary plough pulled by an ox, dropping seeds into the freshly turned earth. It's a precise task. Too many seeds in one place, and they will choke each other out. Too few, and the yield will be meager. The rhythm is hypnotic and backbreaking. Bend, drop, straighten. Bend, drop, straighten. Your knees are caked in mud, your fingers are stained with dirt, and the sun, now a harsh, bright eye in the sky, beats down on the back of your neck. You learn to ignore the discomfort, to simply exist within the cycle of the task. Historians still argue whether the three-field system was a universal practice across medieval Europe or if it was more localized. The theory is that land was divided into three sections, one for a winter crop like wheat, one for a summer crop like barley, and one left fallow to recover nutrients. This system, if it was in use here, would mean the work is never-ending. When one field is resting, another needs ploughing, and the third needs harvesting. There is no downtime, no true break. Your life is a tapestry woven from the threads of these endless agricultural cycles. You might be wondering, what about lunch? The concept of a formal lunch break doesn't really exist. You pause for a brief moment, sitting in the dirt with the other women. You unwrap a small piece of your coarse bread, and perhaps a bit of hard cheese if you're lucky enough to have it. You eat in silence, conserving your energy, watching the sun inch its way across the sky. The master's steward, a loud, brutish man, patrols the fields, his presence a constant reminder that you are being watched, that any moment of idleness is an act of defiance. One of the women, a young girl, whispers a joke about the steward's bad breath, and a few muffled giggles break the tense silence. It's a small moment of rebellion, a quiet way of reclaiming a tiny piece of your humanity. The afternoon brings even more arduous tasks. You might be asked to help with weeding, a task that requires you to crawl along the rows of crops, pulling out every unwanted plant by hand. Or perhaps you'll be assigned to carry stones from one part of the field to another to clear the land. Each task is a punishment in its own way, a test of your physical limits. You learn to rely on the camaraderie of the other women. You sing songs, old folk melodies passed down through generations, their words a mix of sorrow and resilience. They are the background music to your life, a small comfort in a world of harsh reality. As the sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the fields, a horn sounds from the manor house. It's the signal to end the day's labor. You and the others gather your meager belongings and begin the slow, tired trudge back to the village. Your back feels like it's on fire, your hands are raw and blistered, and a deep, soul-crushing weariness settles over you. But the day isn't over yet. There are still chores to be done at your own home. Your small vegetable garden needs tending, A fire needs to be built, and dinner, another bowl of thin gruel, needs to be prepared. The Lord's day has ended, but yours has not. Your existence is a series of never-ending tasks, a chain of duties that binds you from sunrise to sunset. The sun has set by the time you finally return to your humble hovel, but the day's work is far from over. After a quick, meager meal, you must tend to your own small patch of land, your family's only defense against true starvation. With a heavy sigh, you pick up a worn hoe and begin to loosen the soil, your movements slow and weary. The tiny garden, barely a few square feet, is where you will grow the cabbage, onions, and perhaps a few carrots that will see you through the leaner months. It's a relentless, thankless task, but a vital one. Without this labor, your family would have nothing, absolutely nothing to call their own. The work you do for the Lord is a tax on your very existence. But this is work for survival. Your hands, once soft, are now calloused and rough, stained with the soil you spend your life tilling. The tools you use are crude and heavy. There are no ergonomic handles or lightweight metals here. The hoe is a simple wooden shaft with a chunk of iron crudely hammered into a blade. A good day of work leaves your shoulders burning and your back screaming. You've become a creature of pure physical endurance. Another interesting fact is that medieval tools were often shared among serf families because they were too expensive for a single family to own. This added another layer of complication to your life, as you had to wait your turn and be careful not to break a tool that wasn't even yours. A broken tool meant a fine meant less food, and less food meant, well, you get the picture. While you work, you can hear the soft, low hum of conversation from your neighbors. The village is a tight-knit community, born out of necessity and shared suffering. There's a quiet strength in the way the women move, a silent understanding that binds you together. You might hear the gossip about the new piglet born to one of your neighbors, or the tale of a boy who was caught poaching a rabbit from the Lord's woods. These small snippets of information are your only entertainment, your only connection to the wider world beyond the fields and your hut. Historians still argue about the extent to which serfs had their own distinct culture, separate from the Lord's. Did they truly have a sense of shared identity? Or were they just a collection of individuals struggling to survive? For you, it's a mix of both. You are bound by your duties, but you are also bound by the people who share your lot. As the last light fades, you finally lay down your hoe. The stars, bright and numerous in a sky unmarred by city lights, begin to prickle the inky darkness. You gather your family back into the hovel. The small fire in the center of the hut provides a welcome warmth, but also fills the air with smoke, making your eyes water. Your children are already asleep, their small bodies curled together for warmth. You have no books, no stories, no lullabies to offer them. Their lives, like yours, will be defined by the fields. Before you finally rest, there's one last task: preparing for tomorrow. This might involve mending a tear in your husband's tunic with a bone needle and coarse thread, or grinding a small amount of grain for tomorrow's gruel. There is never a moment of true rest, never a time when you can fully detach from the demands of survival. This is a far cry from a life of leisure, and you can't even imagine what it would be like to just sit and do nothing. The thought is so foreign it's almost laughable. A gentle joke that a fellow serf might make is that you don't even have enough time to be properly bored. It's a dark humor, but it helps. The final act of your day is to place a small, smooth stone under your pillow. It's a piece of pagan folklore, a charm for good fortune, and a small, silent prayer for a healthy harvest. It's a small, private moment of hope in a life largely devoid of it. The Christian faith may be the official religion, but the old ways, the quiet superstitions of the earth, are still a part of your daily life. You close your eyes, the exhaustion of physical weight pressing you into the straw. The aches and pains of the day are a symphony in your body, a dull chorus of misery. Sleep is not a luxury, but a necessity, a brief escape from a reality you wouldn't wish on anyone. Your mornings are a blur of physical labor, but the afternoon may bring a new kind of hardship, a different form of servitude. You are summoned to the manor house. This isn't a promotion. It's a redirection of your labor. The air inside the Lord's home is a world away from the smoky chill of your hut. It's warmer, for one thing, and smells of baking bread and roasted meat luxuries you only ever get to sniff, never taste. The floors are stone, swept clean, and tapestries hang on the walls, depicting scenes of chivalry and religious piety. It's a stark reminder of the immense gap between your world and your Lord's. The mistress of the house, a pale, delicate woman, is your new temporary master. Your duties here are varied and often demeaning. You might be asked to help a scullery maid, scrubbing pots and pans with sand and water until your hands are raw. You might find yourself carrying heavy buckets of water up and down the narrow, winding staircases to fill the mistress's bathing tub, a huge wooden affair that will be a luxury beyond your comprehension. It's a lot of running, a lot of lifting, a lot of silent obedience. You learn to keep your head down, to not make eye contact, to be as invisible as possible. The manor is a dangerous place for a young serf woman. A wrong look, a clumsy mistake, or simply being in the wrong place at the wrong time can lead to a beating, or worse. One of the more surprising roles for a female serf could be a wet nurse. If the lady of the manor was unable or unwilling to breastfeed her own child, a serf woman who had recently given birth might be chosen for the task. This was a position of great responsibility, but also a great burden. Your own child would be put on goat's milk or thin gruel while you nourished the Lord's heir. The irony is bitter, but the position might come with some minor privileges, like slightly better food or warmer clothing, which for you is a massive boon. Historians still argue whether this practice was born of necessity, or was simply another way to assert power and class distinction. For you, it's a strange mix of both. You might feel a flicker of pride in the trust placed in you, even as you mourn the nourishment your own child is missing. Your interactions with the noble family are strictly limited. You are part of the scenery, a moving object in their world. The children of the manor, who have their own tutors and lessons, might look at you with a mix of curiosity and disdain. You are a different species to them, a living representation of the dirt and labor that makes their pampered lives possible. They don't see you as a person with thoughts, feelings, and a family of your own. You're just there. It's a lonely existence, a different kind of isolation from the silent companionship of the fields. A quirky detail about household life is the use of herbs and plants. The mistress of the house, and to a lesser extent, her servants, would have a vast knowledge of herbal remedies and culinary spices. You might be tasked with pounding dried herbs for medicine, or fetching fresh rosemary for the Lord's roasted boar. While you learn the names and uses of these plants, you know that their most potent forms and most delicious applications are reserved for the Lord's table. Your own knowledge is for survival, theirs is for luxury and comfort. A joke among the other kitchen staff is that if the Lord ever tasted their gruel, he'd think it was an herbal remedy for a grave illness. As the day wears on, you might be tasked with other duties like tending to the kitchen fire, a huge stone hearth that is the heart of the manor's food preparation. It's a hot, smoky, and dangerous job, but it's also a vital one. The heat is a welcome change from the cold outdoors, but the risk of burns is ever present. You learn to move quickly and carefully, your body always on high alert. There are no safety nets here, no second chances. Every mistake has a consequence. Your hands, already calloused from the fields, become even more scarred by the small nicks and burns of the kitchen. Finally, as dusk falls, you are dismissed. You are handed a small bowl of thin broth and a crust of hard bread, your payment for the day's labor. It's a little more than you would have at home, a small incentive to make you want to return, but it's a pittance compared to the feast the Lord and his family are about to enjoy. You leave the warmth and light of the manor house and step back into the dark, cold reality of the village. The short walk back to your hovel feels like a journey between two different worlds. You are a ghost, a shadow flitting between the luxury of the manor and the grim struggle of your own life. Back in your humble hovel after a long, arduous day, your mind turns to the small matter of personal cleanliness. The idea of a daily shower with hot running water is so preposterously luxurious, it might as well be a fairy tale. Your life is one of stark, unadorned reality. You are, in a word, grimy. The dirt from the fields is ground into your skin. The smell of wood smoke clings to your hair, and the air in your small home is perpetually thick with the scent of bodies that have labored all day. A bucket of cold water is your only option, and you use it sparingly, not for pleasure but for function. Historians still argue about how often medieval people bathed. It's a bit of a myth that they were universally filthy. In reality, cleanliness varied by class and region. The wealthy had access to bathhouses and servants to heat water for them. For you, a serf, a full bath is a rare and seasonal event, maybe once every few months when the weather is warm enough to make it bearable. Your daily hygiene is a quick, cold splash to the face and hands. A quirky tidbit, however, is that soap, a mixture of animal fat and lye, was a known commodity, but it was often a luxury item, not a peasant's staple. You might get a small, hard, coarse bar of it as a rare gift or in payment for a particularly grueling task, but you wouldn't use it for your whole body. It would be a precious item saved for washing your hair or the finest of your linens if you even had any. Another interesting aspect of medieval hygiene is the lack of proper toilets. The manor house has a privy, a simple hole in the stone wall that drops waste into the moat or a cesspit below. For you and your family, it's a shared communal latrine, a smelly, undignified affair at the edge of the village. The concept of toilet paper is non-existent, so you make do with whatever you can find, a handful of leaves or straw. It's a humbling, unpleasant part of your daily routine, a constant reminder of your low station. A joke you might hear from a fellow serf is that you can always tell where the village is from the smell on a windy day. It's not a great joke, but it gets a tired laugh. Your personal grooming is just as Spartan. Your hair is long, but you can't afford to spend time maintaining it. It's usually tied up in a simple knot to keep it out of the way while you work. Lice are a constant problem, a small but persistent irritation that you share with almost everyone in the village. There are no fancy combs or brushes, just your fingers and the occasional rudimentary wooden comb. The women in the village would huddle together, picking the small insects from each other's hair, a communal activity born of necessity. This small act, while unpleasant, is also a moment of quiet connection, a shared burden. The clothes you wear are made of coarse wool and linen. They are not washed often, both because of the labor involved and because constant washing would wear them out faster. When they are washed, it's in the same cold stream you fetched water from for the Lord, using ash from the fire as a simple form of lye-based cleaner. The fabric is pounded with a rock to get the dirt out. It's a brutal, cold process that leaves your hands raw and your back aching. The clothes are then hung to dry on a line or over a bush. This process, a massive chore, is another reason why you simply wear the same things day in and day out. The small health problems you face are constant. A splinter in your finger from carrying firewood, a cut from a tool, a scrape from a thorn bush. There's no doctor to see, no medicine to take. You rely on old folk remedies passed down from your mother and grandmother. A poultice of crushed herbs for a wound, a warm drink of spiced wine for a fever. These are your only defenses against a world of constant physical threat. The fact is, a simple infection could be a death sentence. Your body is a machine for work, but it's also a fragile one, vulnerable to a million little things that modern life would dismiss as minor inconveniences. Every day is a gamble, every scratch a potential disaster. Now that you've survived your first day of fieldwork and a brief, terrifying stint in the manor kitchen, you begin to understand that a serf's life isn't just about physical labor. It's a constant navigation of social and political landmines. You are a small, insignificant piece in a grand chessboard, and the slightest misstep can have serious consequences. The lord of the manor, your ultimate master, is a distant, almost mythological figure, but his power is absolute. You interact with his representatives, like the bailiff and the steward, and it's their whims you truly have to worry about. The bailiff is in charge of the day-to-day running of the estate, collecting rents and fines, while the steward manages the lord's household. To you, they are the face of authority. The manor has its own intricate rules, a series of unspoken expectations and subtle hierarchies. For instance, you learn quickly that the older, more experienced women in the village have a higher social standing among their peers, a respect earned through years of survival and hard work. They are the ones you go to for advice on everything from a sick child to a broken tool. Their wisdom is a form of currency, and you would be foolish to ignore it. A quirky tidbit is that in some regions, women's social status was tied to their ability to produce certain goods, like particularly high-quality linen or a durable kind of earthenware. This gave them a small measure of power within their own community, a way to distinguish themselves beyond their ability to simply work the fields. Historians still argue about the true extent of a serf's rights. While you are bound to the land and cannot leave without the lord's permission, you do have some nominal protections. For example, the lord couldn't legally sell you away from your land as a Roman slave could. Your family was also afforded some protections, and your lord couldn't just separate you and your children without cause. Of course, the reality of this protection often depended entirely on the temperament of your lord and the power of local custom, which could vary wildly from one manor to the next. In practice, if the lord wanted something from you, he usually found a way to get it. A gentle joke whispered among the serfs is that their only right is the right to remain silent, and even that is a dangerous one. You must also learn the art of paying your dues, a process called tallage. This is an arbitrary tax the lord could levy at will. The amount would be decided by the lord and collected by the bailiff, and you would have no say in the matter. It's a constant, low-level anxiety, a fear that at any moment the bailiff could come knocking and demand more than you have. This system of arbitrary taxation and rent is a cornerstone of your servitude, a way to ensure you never get ahead, never accumulate enough wealth to be anything other than a serf. You pay your rent in both coin, if you have it, and in labour, a system known as corvée. The work you do in the Lord's fields is part of this rent, a tax on the tiny plot of land you are allowed to work for your own family. The women of the village are a vital source of information and support. While the men might discuss crop yields and the Lord's recent decrees, the women are the ones who pass along the social news, the gossip, and the small bits of information that can make your life easier or harder. They know which overseer is more lenient, which herbs are best for a fever, and which parts of the forest are off limits. They are the silent, unofficial network that holds the village together. A simple conversation at the well can be a lifesaver, a quiet exchange of knowledge that your lord and his men are completely unaware of. This female-led support system is a crucial part of your life, a small pocket of agency in a world that seeks to deny you any. It's through this network that you learn the unspoken rules of the manor, the subtle cues that tell you when to be deferential and when you can get away with a small bit of cheek. It's a delicate dance, a constant performance of obedience that keeps you and your family safe. With the field work and the kitchen duties done for the day, your lord might decide to exploit your labour in another way. Today, you are sent to the manor's textile workshop. The air here is thick with the scent of lanolin and the dry, dusty smell of wool. This is a place of endless, repetitive motion, a world of spinning wheels and looms. Your hands, already aching from the fields, are now put to a different, but no less demanding task. You are given a small distaff and a clump of uncarded wool. Your job is to spin. The motion is simple but requires a practiced hand. You pull a small amount of wool from the distaff, twist it into a thread, and wind it onto a spindle. It's a rhythmic, almost hypnotic motion, one that you've watched the older women perform your entire life. It's a quiet work, punctuated only by the soft whir of the spinning wheels and the low murmur of conversation. A quirky tidbit is that the term distaff side for the female line of a family comes from this very task, as spinning was so central to a woman's identity and labour. Historians still argue about the exact division of labour in medieval households. Was spinning a task for every woman, or were there specialist spinners? For you, it's simply another job, another way for the Lord to profit from your time and effort. The wool you are spinning will not be used for your own clothes. It will be woven into fine cloth for the Lord's family or sold at market to bring him a profit. Your own clothing is made from the coarsest wool, undyed and often full of burrs, a stark contrast to the soft, colourful threads you are now helping to create. Weaving is a more complex task, usually reserved for the more skilled and older women. They sit at large, cumbersome looms, their hands flying over the threads with a speed and precision you can only marvel at. The sound of the loom, a rhythmic clacking and thudding, fills the workshop. You watch them, a part of you silently hoping that one day you might learn this skill, a skill that could earn you a little more respect and a tiny bit of privilege within the village hierarchy. A gentle joke whispered among the women is that the Lord's cloth is so beautiful, he must think it grows on trees. Mending is another one of your tasks. The Lord's family has clothes, beautiful tunics and cloaks dyed with expensive pigments, but they still wear out. You might be given a torn garment, the fabric so much finer than anything you've ever touched, and a needle and thread. You must mend it carefully, invisibly, as if the tear never happened. It's a delicate task, and a slip of the hand can lead to a scolding or a fine. The contrast between the garment in your hand and the rough tunic on your back is a constant, quiet form of torture. You are mending a world that you are not allowed to be a part of. The evening in the workshop is a different kind of quiet from the fields. It's a time for the women to share stories, to pass down traditions, and to offer each other support. It's a place of female solidarity, a small haven in a brutal world. You learn about the medicinal properties of certain plants, the best way to cook a small rabbit, if you're lucky enough to catch one, and the history of your family, passed down through generations of oral storytelling. The older women are the keepers of this knowledge, and they share it freely with the younger ones. You are a part of a quiet, powerful sisterhood. Finally, as the last of the light fades, the foreman of the workshop, a man just as gruff and unfeeling as the bailiff, calls an end to the day. You leave the warmth and the noise of the workshop and step back into the cold night. Your fingers are tired and cramped, and a new kind of ache, a stiffness in your neck and shoulders, has replaced the soreness in your back. The work is different, but the exhaustion is the same. There is no escape from the relentless demands of your life as a serf. Whether you're in the fields or in the workshop, you are a tool, and you will be used in whatever way the Lord sees fit. After a long day of labor, whether in the fields or the workshop, your stomach starts to rumble, and your thoughts turn to the evening meal. The medieval diet of a serf is not a culinary adventure, it's a matter of practicality and survival. Your dinner, like your breakfast, is likely to be a simple pottage, a thick stew made from whatever is available. This isn't a Michelin star meal. It's a bland, monotonous repetition of boiled vegetables, mostly turnips and cabbage, and a grain, usually barley or oats. Meat is a luxury, a rare treat reserved for feast days, or for a small amount of game you might, on a very lucky day, manage to catch without being caught yourself. You might also have a bit of hard cheese, made from the milk of your family's single goat or cow, if you're fortunate enough to have one. It's widely known that cereals were the cornerstone of the medieval peasant diet, with bread and pottage making up the vast majority of caloric intake. This is because grains are easy to store and provide a lot of energy for a low cost. For you, this means a life largely free of scurvy, as your diet, while monotonous, is surprisingly high in vitamin C from all the boiled vegetables. A quirky tidbit is that people in the Middle Ages would often mix their grain with a variety of other things to stretch it further, including peas, beans, and even acorns. These additions, while not always pleasant, were a way to ensure you didn't go to bed completely hungry. Academics continue to debate whether medieval peasants were truly malnourished or just underfed. The average person's diet lacked a lot of the things we consider essential today, like a wide variety of fresh fruits and protein. But for the most part, serfs got enough calories to do their hard labor, even if the food was bland and uninspired. For you, the difference between malnourishment and simply being hungry is a distinction you don't have time to consider. A joke that might pass between the women in your hut is that they have so much fiber in their diet, they're practically a walking health benefit. The social aspect of eating is also very different from what you're used to. There are no fancy dining tables or individual plates. Everyone eats out of a single communal pot, using a wooden spoon. The meal is a quiet affair, a time to restore energy and get ready for the brief, precious hours of sleep. The children eat first, as is the tradition, to make sure they get enough to grow. The small act of sharing a meal, even a meager one, is a moment of connection, a time when the family is together, away from the watchful eyes of the Lord's men. Drinks are also different. Clean water is often hard to come by, and drinking straight from the local stream is a risk many people won't take. Instead, you drink ale. It's low alcohol, a weak, thin beer that is brewed in most homes. It's a safer alternative to water and provides a small amount of extra calories. The brewing process, which involves boiling the water, kills most of the harmful bacteria. A fun fact: ale was considered a foodstuff, not just a beverage, and was often consumed by children as well as adults. After the meal, you have a brief moment of quiet time. This is a time for a small fire, for a little bit of mending, for a whispered story. It's a time to be a person, not a serf. It's a moment to connect with your family, to share a day's worth of triumphs and failures, no matter how small they might be. But even this small moment is not without its limitations. The fear of fire is constant, as your hovel, made of wattle and daub with a thatched roof, is highly flammable, and the cold is always creeping in, making you want to huddle closer to the fire despite the risk. There is no true relaxation, no real comfort. It is just a different kind of survival. With the day's ceaseless labor finally behind you, you have a brief, precious moment to yourself before sleep. This isn't a time for leisure, not in the way you understand it. There are no books to read, no music to listen to, and no friends to chat with over a warm drink. Your brief respite is a time for quiet, essential tasks. You might use this time to carefully check your children for lice, a necessary and frequent part of medieval life. Or you might sit with the other women, and in the faint light of the fire, mend a tear in a shirt or repair a broken basket. These moments are a quiet testament to your resilience, to the way you find time and energy for the small, important details of life, even when you have none to spare. One fascinating detail about this era is the practice of oral tradition. With a high rate of illiteracy, stories and history were passed down by word of mouth. The women in your village are the keepers of these tales, legends of brave heroes, funny stories about mischievous spirits, and historical accounts of past famines and wars. These stories are a form of entertainment, but they are also a crucial way of preserving the culture and identity of your people. A gentle joke that might be shared is that your lord may have a scribe to write down his deeds, but you have the memories of 1,000 years in your mind. The scholarly community is still divided on the exact nature of this oral tradition. Was it a consistent, rigid form of history, or did it change and evolve with each telling? For you, it's a lifeline. It's a way to connect with the past and to feel a sense of belonging in a world that constantly tries to deny your humanity. You are a part of a long, unbroken chain of women who have survived in this very spot, tilling this very soil. It gives you a sense of purpose, a quiet pride. Another part of your evening is tending to your small garden. Even in the fading light, you must pull a few weeds or water a few struggling plants. This small plot of land, your only possession, is a source of hope and a source of constant anxiety. If a crop fails, if a pest gets to your cabbage, your family will suffer for it. There is no social safety net, no one to turn to if your harvest is poor. Every seed, every plant, is a gamble against the fickle nature of the weather and the cruelty of fate. A quirky detail about medieval homes is the practice of piling, where the floor of your hut, which is simply packed earth, would be covered with rushes and straw. This provides a small amount of insulation and comfort, but it also becomes a breeding ground for pests and a holder of dirt. It is a necessary but unhygienic part of your home life. You would have to change the rushes and straw periodically, a dirty and labor-intensive chore that adds to your already massive workload. As the fire dies down to embers, you begin to prepare for sleep. Your bed, A straw mattress on the floor is lumpy and uncomfortable. You lie down next to your husband and children, huddling together for warmth. The sounds of the night, the howling of the wind, the distant hooting of an owl, the rustling of rats in the walls of your hut are your only soundtrack. Sleep is not a luxury, but a necessity, a way to restore your body for another day of hard labor. You close your eyes, the last thought in your mind, a quiet prayer for a good harvest and a healthy family. In this brief moment of rest, you are not a serf, not a laborer, but a woman, a mother, and a survivor. The journey you are on is a test of your will and your strength, a test you are passing, one hard-won day at a time. Even in your brief moments of rest, the constant threat of disease looms large, a silent, invisible killer that is a very real part of your life. The crowded, unhygienic conditions of your village are a breeding ground for sickness. The very air you breathe, thick with smoke and the smell of unwashed bodies and animals, is a potential vector for illness. There are no doctors in your village, no nurses, and certainly no medicines in the way you would understand them. The only medical knowledge you have is a patchwork of folk remedies and superstitions passed down through generations. One widely accepted fact is that life expectancy was brutally short in medieval times, with many people not living past the age of 40. Infant mortality was particularly high, and a simple fever or a nasty cough could be a death sentence for a small child. The lack of sanitation and clean drinking water meant that diseases like dysentery, smallpox, and the plague were a constant threat. Your community is in a constant state of low-level anxiety, a quiet dread that at any moment a new sickness could sweep through and decimate your family. A quirky tidbit is that people often carried charms or wore a small bag of potent-smelling herbs around their neck to ward off evil spirits, which were believed to be the cause of disease. The scholarly community is still divided on the exact effectiveness of medieval remedies. Were they a complete waste of time, or did some of them, through a fluke of nature or a basic understanding of herbal properties, actually work? For you, the difference is moot. If a child has a fever, you will try every remedy you know, from a poultice of crushed leaves to a warm drink of steeped herbs. There is no other option. A gentle joke whispered among the women is that a sick child has a better chance of being cured by a witch than a man of science. It's a bitter humor, but it helps. The illnesses you face are often a direct result of your lifestyle. The constant physical labor takes a toll on your body, leading to back pain, joint stiffness, and injuries that never properly heal. The poor, monotonous diet leaves you vulnerable to a variety of ailments. Scurvy, while not as common as in later periods, could still happen if a winter was particularly harsh and you ran out of stored vegetables. You might suffer from toothaches, as the gritty flour in your bread wears down your teeth, and without a dentist, the pain is a constant, quiet form of torture. Your body is not your own in another, more insidious way. It is a vessel for labor, and if it breaks, you are simply replaced. There is no sick leave, no workers' compensation. If you are too sick to work, your family suffers, and you risk a fine from the Lord's bailiff. There is an unspoken pressure to be healthy, to appear strong, even when you feel weak. You learn to hide your ailments, to work through the pain, and to save your moments of vulnerability for the privacy of your hut. The community's response to sickness is a mix of practicality and superstition. The women, who have a vast knowledge of herbal remedies, will come together to help a sick family. They will brew teas, apply poultices, and offer comfort. But they will also pray, light candles, and consult with the village wise woman, a woman who understands both the natural and the supernatural world. It's a holistic approach to medicine, born of necessity and a deep-seated fear of the unknown. The health of your family, your community, and yourself is a constant gamble, a daily roll of the dice against a world of invisible, malevolent forces. The best you can do is work hard, pray, and hope that tomorrow you will wake up to find your body is still strong enough to face another day of labor. The turning of the seasons dictates your life. a relentless and unforgiving cycle that your body and mind must endure. As the short, cold days of winter give way to the first pale sun of spring, your work changes, but it doesn't get easier. The frozen ground begins to thaw, and with it comes the back-breaking labor of ploughing and sowing. The entire village, men and women alike, work together to prepare the fields, turning the soil with crude wooden ploughs pulled by oxen. You walk alongside the plough, picking up stones and breaking up large clumps of earth with a heavy hoe. It's a messy, muddy, and exhausting process, but it's a vital one. Without this labor, there will be no harvest, and without a harvest, there will be no food for the long winter ahead. It's a historical fact that the seasonal rhythm of agricultural life was the central organizing principle for peasant communities, a constant cycle of planting, tending, and harvesting that governed every aspect of their existence. Your life is not measured in years or decades, but in harvests. A good harvest means your family will eat. A bad one means you will go hungry. This makes you a serf, not just a laborer, but a gambler, a person whose life is a constant bet against the weather. A quirky tidbit is that people often used a special calendar called a calendarium to track the agricultural cycle and the various saints' days that were important to the community. These calendars were often very simple, with drawings of the tasks to be done in each month. A key scholarly debate revolves around the psychological impact of this seasonal rhythm. Did it create a deep sense of connection to the land and a fatalistic acceptance of one's lot, or did it foster a constant, low-level anxiety about the future? For you, it's a mix of both. You are deeply connected to the earth you work, a part of a cycle that is older than your lord, older than the manor house. But you are also constantly afraid, a fear that is always just under the surface. A gentle joke that might be shared is that the Lord gets to worry about wars and taxes, while you get to worry about something much more important: rain. As spring turns into summer, the days get longer, and the work becomes even more intense. The fields need to be weeded, watered, and protected from pests. You spend long hours under the hot sun, your body aching and your skin burning, crawling along the rows of crops, pulling out every unwanted plant. The flies and mosquitoes are a constant nuisance, and there's nothing to protect you from their bites. You learn to work through the discomfort, to simply endure. This is the heart of your existence, a period of unrelenting labor that will determine your family's fate for the coming year. Then comes the harvest, the most crucial and most labor-intensive part of the year. The entire village, including the children, works from sunup to sundown. You use a sickle to cut the stalks of grain, your movements quick and precise. The work is fast, because if a sudden rainstorm comes, it could ruin the crop. The air is thick with dust and chaff, and your throat is perpetually dry. You carry heavy bundles of grain on your back, your shoulders protesting with every step. The feeling of the harvest is a mix of exhaustion and a quiet, desperate hope. It is the culmination of all your hard work, a moment of truth that will determine your family's future. Finally, as autumn arrives, the cycle begins to slow down. The last of the crops are brought in, and the fields are left fallow to recover. Your work shifts to gathering firewood for the winter, mending clothing and tools, and preparing for the long, cold months ahead. The cycle is never truly over. It just changes. Your life is a reflection of the seasons, a constant ebb and flow of work and rest, of hope and despair. And as you prepare for another harsh winter, you can't help but wonder what the next turn of the great wheel will bring. As a female serf, your life is not just defined by your labor, but also by your roles as a wife, and most importantly, a mother. The burden of motherhood in this era is a heavy one, a constant balancing act between your work for the Lord and the needs of your family. Pregnancy is not a time of rest or special care. You continue to work in the fields for as long as you can, a constant fear of miscarriage or harm to your unborn child, a quiet companion. Childbirth is a dangerous and often solitary affair. There are no doctors, no midwives, only the older women of the village who have been through it before. It is a moment of intense pain and vulnerability, a roll of the dice that could end in tragedy for you or your child. A documented historical fact is that infant and maternal mortality rates were extremely high in medieval Europe. Many women did not survive childbirth, and a large number of children died before their first birthday from a variety of illnesses and malnourishment. This makes every healthy child you have a small miracle, a precious gift in a brutal world. A quirky detail is that a newly born child would often be swaddled tightly in linen strips and left in a cradle near the fire. The swaddling was believed to protect the child from evil spirits and to help their limbs grow straight. The scholarly community is still divided on the true extent of affection between medieval parents and their children. Was the high rate of infant mortality a reason for emotional detachment? Or did parents love their children fiercely, knowing that every day with them was a gift? For you, the answer is a simple one. You love your children with a fierce, protective love. You teach them to be resilient, to be strong, to know the secrets of the land, and to respect the subtle rules of the village. You teach them not with words, but with your actions, with the calloused hands that work for them, with the weary body that toils for their survival. A gentle joke that might be shared is that while the Lord's children are taught with books and letters, yours are taught with mud and sun. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. Your children are not just your offspring, they are also your future. They are your legacy, the people who will carry on your name and your bloodline, but they are also a source of endless work. As soon as they are old enough, they are put to work in the fields alongside you, learning the rhythms of the seasons and the demands of labor. They are not sent to school. Their education is the world around them. They learn to plant, to harvest, to tend to the animals, and to be a small part of the complex machinery of the manor. This is their inheritance, not a piece of land or a bag of coin, but a life of servitude. As a mother, you are also the primary caregiver, the healer, the cook, and the teacher of your children. You are the one who knows which herbs will soothe a cough, which stories will calm a crying child, and which superstitions will protect them from harm. You are the heart of your family, the person who holds it all together. But you are also just a serf, a woman with no rights, no power, and no escape from the relentless demands of your life. The children you bring into this world will face the same hardships and the same struggles you do, a quiet, heartbreaking reality that you must live with every single day. The love you have for them is not a soft, gentle thing. It is a fierce, desperate love, a love born of struggle and survival. The role of women in the feudal economy is often overlooked, but it is undeniably a vital one. While your husband's labor may be the most visible, your own work, both for the Lord and for your family, is the very backbone of the system. You are a silent, tireless force, a crucial part of the engine that keeps the manor running. You are a producer and a consumer, a person whose work directly translates into the wealth of your Lord. Your hands, whether they are in the soil or at the spinning wheel, are creating the goods that fill his coffers and the food that fills his pantry. It's a verified historical fact that women's labor was essential for agricultural production, as they often worked alongside men in the fields and were primarily responsible for a wide range of domestic and craft-related tasks that were crucial to the manor's economy. A quirky tidbit is that in some manors, women were even responsible for brewing the village's ale, a vital part of the local economy, and a task that gave them a small amount of social standing. There is an ongoing academic debate on whether this heavy workload gave women a form of power or influence within their communities, even if they had no legal rights. Did their essential contributions to the economy afford them a voice in village affairs, or were they still relegated to a subordinate role? For you, the answer is complex. You are respected for your hard work and your knowledge of the land, but you have no say in the decisions that truly matter, like the amount of tillage or the laws of the manor. Your power is a quiet, unofficial power, a power of influence rather than a power of authority. A gentle joke you might hear is that a man's word may be law, but a woman's work is life. It's a somber truth, but a truth nonetheless. Your work at home is a form of small-scale production that is crucial for your family's survival. You mend clothes, prepare food, and care for the animals, a series of tasks that are both time-consuming and vital. You are an expert at making do with what you have, at stretching a small amount of food into a meal, and at repairing a torn garment until it can be worn no more. You are, in effect, the chief financial officer of your family, and your skill at managing a household on a shoestring budget is a form of art. This is your personal economy, a world of careful calculations and quiet desperation, a world that exists in the shadow of the Lord's great wealth. The products of your labor are a form of tax, a tribute to the Lord that is paid in kind. When you are summoned to the textile workshop, the cloth you spin is a form of rent. When you harvest the fields, a large portion of the crop is taken by the Lord. This is the central injustice of your life. You are working for someone else's profit, and you are not allowed to keep the fruits of your own labor. You are a serf, a person without a choice, a person who must give away the very things that could help you get ahead. It is a system that is designed to keep you poor, to keep you dependent, to keep you a serf forever. It is a system of immense power and immense cruelty, a system that you are at the very heart of. In the quiet moments after a long day of labor, after the children are asleep and the fire has been banked, your thoughts often turn to the unknown forces that govern your world. You live in a world where the line between reality and the supernatural is incredibly thin. The whispers of the old women, the strange traditions, and the quiet prayers are a form of protection, a way of making sense of a world that is often cruel and unpredictable. You find yourself relying on pagan beliefs that have survived for centuries, even in a world that is officially Christian. You might leave a small offering of bread or milk for the forest spirits, or tie a small, colorful ribbon to a tree to bring good luck. These are not acts of rebellion, they are acts of survival. It is a well-established historical fact that folklore and superstition played a huge role in the daily lives of medieval peasants, coexisting with, and often intertwining with, official Christian doctrine. The Christian faith gave you hope for the afterlife, but the old pagan ways gave you a sense of control over the unpredictable forces of this life. A quirky detail is that people would often bury a rooster alive in the foundation of a new barn, believing that its sacrifice would protect the building and its livestock from evil spirits. There is a long-standing scholarly debate about the extent to which these pagan beliefs were genuinely held or were simply a cultural tradition. Were peasants truly polytheistic in their hearts, or were these rituals just a way of hedging their bets? For you, the answer is a little of both. You attend church on Sunday and listen to the priest's sermons, but you also believe that a certain herb can ward off a fever and that a well-placed charm can protect your family from bad luck. A gentle joke that might be shared is that the priest may talk about God's plan, but a wise woman knows that the forest has its own ideas. Your fear of the supernatural is just as real as your fear of the bailiff. You fear the spirits of the forest, the goblins that might steal your children, and the witches that might cast a spell on your crops. These fears are a part of your daily life, a constant, low-level anxiety that is as real as the hunger in your belly. The village has a wise woman, an older woman who knows the properties of every plant and the secrets of every charm. She is a source of comfort and fear, a person who can heal with herbs, but who might also be in league with the very spirits you fear. The superstitions you rely on are a form of practical knowledge. You believe that planting crops on a certain day will lead to a better harvest, or that a certain ritual will bring rain. This knowledge, passed down through generations, is a form of technology, a way of controlling your world in the only way you know how. It is a way of creating a sense of order in a world that is fundamentally chaotic. The official religion of the land, Christianity, offers you solace and a promise of a better life after death. You go to church on holy days, you pray for a good harvest, and you try to be a good person in the eyes of God. But the old ways, the quiet superstitions of the earth, are a part of who you are. They are a part of the soil, a part of the air, a part of the very fabric of your life. They are a way of acknowledging that there are forces at play in this world that are beyond the control of any lord or any priest, forces that you must appease in order to survive. It is a delicate balance, a constant negotiation between two different worlds. a negotiation you must win every single day. Your life as a serf, while a constant struggle, is not a life without a spiritual dimension. The village priest is the one person in your community who holds a direct connection to a world beyond the fields and the manor house. He is a man of God, but he is also a man of immense temporal power, a person who can intercede on your behalf, offer you spiritual comfort, and, in some cases, even punish you. Your relationship with him is a complex one, a mix of reverence, respect, and a healthy dose of fear. A foundational historical fact is that the Catholic Church was a central and powerful institution in medieval Europe, holding vast lands and wielding significant political and social influence. The local priest, while often from a humble background, was a representative of this immense power. He was not just a spiritual leader, he was a notary, a judge in minor disputes, and the person who kept the records of births, marriages, and deaths. A quirky detail is that in some rural areas, priests were also responsible for organizing local festivals and plays, acting as a kind of community leader and cultural figurehead. An ongoing scholarly debate is whether the Church's influence was a net positive for serfs. Did it offer them a sense of hope and a moral framework that made their lives more bearable? Or was it simply another form of control, a way of keeping the peasant class docile and obedient? For you, the answer is personal. The priest's sermons offer you a moment of solace, a promise of a better life in the next world. His words, spoken in Latin, are a beautiful, mysterious sound that lifts you out of the grim reality of your daily life. But his power is also something to be feared. He can deny you the sacraments, a punishment that would be a source of immense anxiety for a person of faith. He can also fine you for minor transgressions, a fine that you would have to pay with your already meager resources. A gentle joke whispered among the women is that the priest might have the keys to heaven, but the bailiff still has the keys to the pantry. It's a truth that you and all the women in your village know intimately. Your religious life is a quiet one. You attend Mass on Sunday, standing in the back of the small, simple church. The stone floor is cold under your feet, and the air is thick with the scent of incense and damp wool. You pray for a good harvest, for a healthy family, and for the souls of your ancestors. But your faith is not just a Sunday affair. It is a part of your daily life. You say a quick prayer before a meal, a prayer before you go to bed, and a prayer when a child is sick. It is a constant, low-level conversation with God, a way of acknowledging that there are forces at play in this world that are far beyond your control. The priest is also a source of information. He can read and write, and he is the one who will read the Lord's decrees to the village. He is your only connection to the wider world, a person who knows what is happening beyond the fields of your manor. He is a gatekeeper of knowledge, and you rely on him for every scrap of information you can get. His position is one of immense privilege and immense responsibility. He is a person who lives in both your world and the world of the Lord, a person who understands the complex, delicate balance of power that governs your life. He is a necessary evil, a source of comfort and a source of fear, a person you cannot live with and cannot live without. The Lord's justice is a far cry from the modern legal systems you're used to. There are no fair trials, no juries of your peers, and no lawyers to defend you. There is only the Lord's court, a gathering of the Lord and his men, and the bailiff who acts as judge, jury, and executioner. The justice system is an extension of the Lord's power, a way of maintaining control and extracting fines from his serfs. It is a world of arbitrary rules and brutal punishments, a world where your word means nothing against the word of a free man. It's a historical fact that manorial courts were the primary legal authority for serfs, handling a wide range of issues from petty theft to disputes over land. These courts were not a source of justice in the modern sense. They were a tool for the Lord to enforce his will and to generate revenue through fines. A quirky detail is that a serf accused of a crime might be subjected to a trial by ordeal, a brutal and superstitious test that involved things like holding a hot iron or being thrown into a body of water. The belief was that God would protect the innocent, a belief that often resulted in the death of the accused, guilty or not. A significant scholarly debate exists over the extent to which these courts were truly effective at maintaining order. Did the fear of the Lord's justice keep the serfs in line? Or did it foster a quiet, simmering resentment that would eventually lead to rebellion? For you, the answer is a daily, low-level fear. You know that a minor transgression, like a child being caught poaching a rabbit from the Lord's woods, could result in a crippling fine or a beating. You watch your children carefully, teaching them to stay away from the Lord's property and to always be deferential to his men. You are a parent, but you are also a warden, a person whose job is to keep her family out of trouble. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the Lord's justice is like a storm. You never know when it's coming, and when it does, it's always a disaster. You might be called to the court as a witness, a terrifying experience where you must swear an oath on a Bible and speak your truth in front of the Lord. Your testimony, however, is often given little weight, as a serf's word is considered less valuable than that of a free man. The justice of the manor is a world of double standards, a system that is rigged against you from the very beginning. You learn to stay out of trouble, to be as invisible as possible, and to avoid conflict at all costs. This is not a life of freedom. It is a life of constant vigilance. The punishments are often brutal and public. A person caught stealing might have their hand cut off or be put in the stocks for the entire village to see. The public nature of these punishments is a form of social control, a warning to the rest of the village of what happens when you cross the Lord. You watch these punishments with a mix of fear and pity, a quiet desperation in your heart. You are a part of this system, a person who benefits from the order it creates, but also a person who is constantly at risk from its cruelty. You are a serf, a person who lives under the constant shadow of the Lord's will, a person who knows that your life and your safety are not your own. With the work of the day and the ever-present threat of the Lord's justice weighing on your mind, you finally return to the one place that is truly your own, your small, drafty hovel. This is not a home in the modern sense. It is a shelter, a crude structure of wattle and daub, a mixture of mud, straw, and dung plastered over a wooden frame. The roof is thatched with straw or reeds, a constant fire hazard, and a favorite nesting place for mice and other vermin. There are no windows, just a small shuttered opening to let in a bit of light and to let out some of the smoke from the central hearth. The door is a simple wooden affair, held shut with a leather strap. This is your sanctuary, a place of meagre comfort and constant struggle. A mainstream historical fact is that peasant homes were generally single-room structures, shared by the entire family and sometimes even their livestock. There was no concept of a private bedroom or a separate kitchen. Everything happened in this one room: sleeping, cooking, and mending. The warmth of the animals was a welcome addition in the cold winter months, but it also contributed to the unpleasant smell and the unsanitary conditions. A quirky tidbit is that the word threshold comes from the practice of threshing, or separating grain from its stalks, on the floor of the home, which was then covered with a piece of wood to keep the dirt from coming inside. There is a long-standing scholarly debate about the extent to which these homes were truly home to the serfs. Did they see them as a place of comfort and belonging, or were they just a temporary shelter from the elements? For you, the answer is a little of both. It is a place of safety, a place where you can be with your family, a place where you can escape the prying eyes of the Lord's men. But it is also a constant source of anxiety. It is cold, it is dirty, and it is always in need of repair. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the rats are the real lords of the manor, since they live in the walls and do as they please. The floor of your hovel is simply packed earth, which is often covered in rushes and straw to provide a bit of insulation. The rushes, however, become a breeding ground for fleas and other pests, and they must be changed periodically, a dirty and unpleasant chore. There is no furniture to speak of, just a few stools, a crude wooden table, and a straw mattress on the floor that you share with your family. The fire in the central hearth is your only source of warmth and light. It is also a source of constant danger, as a stray spark could easily set the thatched roof ablaze. The constant battle against the elements is a part of your daily life. In the winter, the cold seeps through the walls, and the drafts are a constant nuisance. In the summer, the heat and the flies are a constant annoyance. You spend your life in a state of quiet discomfort, a person who is never truly warm, never truly clean, and never truly at rest. But in this small, crude hut, you are also the mistress of your own domain. You are the one who tends the fire, who cooks the food, and who holds her family together. In a world that seeks to deny you any power, this small home is a tiny piece of freedom, a place where you are not a serf but a mother, a wife, and a person. It is a harsh, unyielding world. But in this small, cramped space, you find a small piece of strength. Your daily life is a relentless cycle of hard labor, but there are rare moments of respite, brief flashes of light in an otherwise dark world. One such moment is the annual village festival. This is a day sanctioned by the Lord, a brief period of celebration and communal joy that allows you to forget, if only for a few hours, the brutal reality of your servitude. The festival is a public affair, a day of feasting, games, and music. The entire village, including the Lord and his family, participates, a strange and temporary flattening of the social hierarchy. A mainstream historical fact is that medieval festivals and feast days were important social and religious events, marking the end of a harvest season or celebrating a saint's day. These were not just for fun. They were a way of relieving social tensions and reinforcing community bonds. A quirky tidbit is that people would often perform plays and mummery, where they would dress up in costumes and act out traditional folk tales. These plays were often bawdy and irreverent, a chance to poke fun at the powerful without fear of retribution. There is a long-standing academic debate about the true nature of these festivals. Were they a genuine celebration of community and culture, or were they a form of social control, a way for the Lord to give the peasants just enough freedom to keep them from rebelling? For you, the answer is personal. The festival is a moment of pure joy, a chance to eat a bit of roasted meat and drink some good ale. It is a time to dance with your husband and to watch your children play. It is a time when the entire village, regardless of station, comes together to celebrate. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the Lord's men are so drunk they can't even tell a serf from a noble. It's a sweet, delicious bit of humor that you all share. The festival is a chance to see your neighbors in a different light. The stoic old men who work the fields all day might be telling a funny story or playing a tune on a crude flute. The quiet women who spin wool all day might be dancing with abandon. It is a moment of communal identity, a time when you are not just a serf, but a member of a community, a person who belongs to something larger than yourself. The Lord's presence at the festival is a mixed blessing. He is there to show his benevolence, to remind you that he is a good and generous ruler, but his presence also casts a long shadow over the proceedings. You are always aware of his watchful eyes, always aware that this brief period of freedom is a gift from him, a gift that can be taken away at any time. It's a reminder that even your joy is a form of servitude. The festival ends as quickly as it began. As the sun sets, the music dies down, and the villagers, their stomachs full and their hearts a little lighter, begin to make their way back to their hovels. The next morning, the work will begin again. The fields will be just as demanding, the Lord's men just as harsh, and your life just as brutal. But for a few precious hours, you had a moment of freedom, a moment of joy, a moment of belonging. The memories of the festival will carry you through the long, difficult months ahead. They are a source of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is still a small bit of light. The annual festival might have given you a moment of peace, but you're not safe from the world outside your village. The Lord's manor and your village are just tiny specks in a much larger, more violent world. Your life is not only governed by the whims of your Lord, but also by the constant threat from outside forces. The spectre of wandering bandits, rival lords, or even foreign armies is a persistent, underlying fear that you live with every day. Your home, your family, and everything you hold dear are vulnerable to these threats, and you are completely powerless to protect them. A foundational historical fact is that warfare and raiding were common occurrences in the medieval period, especially during times of political instability. A lord's power was often measured by his ability to protect his people, but this protection was never a guarantee. A rival lord might burn your crops or steal your livestock as a way of hurting your lord. A wandering band of mercenaries, a group of soldiers without a master, might descend on your village, taking what they want and leaving destruction in their wake. A quirky detail is that in some parts of medieval Europe, villagers would organize themselves into a makeshift militia, using farming tools as weapons, as a last resort to defend their homes. This rarely ended well. The scholarly community is still divided on the exact frequency and impact of these outside attacks. Were they a constant, daily threat, or were they more like natural disasters, rare but utterly devastating when they happened? For you, the answer is irrelevant. The threat is real, and the fear is constant. You teach your children to be quiet, to hide at the first sign of trouble, and to never, ever speak to a stranger. You are a mother, but you are also a protector, a person whose job is to keep her family safe in a world of immense danger. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that at least a bandit doesn't care if you've paid your tallage. It's a dark humor, but it's a necessary one. When the warning horn sounds a long, low blast from the Lord's watchtower, the entire village goes into a frenzy. The men rush to the manor house to help with the defenses, and the women gather the children and what few valuables they have, which for you is maybe a small bag of coins and a few loaves of bread. You hide in the forest, in a cave or a thicket of bushes, a terrifying experience where you must keep your children quiet and still for hours on end, all while listening to the sounds of violence in the distance. The fear of being found, of being discovered by a hungry soldier or a desperate bandit, is a fear that is almost unbearable. You are a serf, but you are also a survivor, a person who knows how to be quiet, how to be small, and how to disappear when she needs to. The aftermath of an attack is often just as bad as the attack itself. Your crops might be burned, your home might be looted, and your livestock might be stolen. The Lord might compensate you for your losses, but he might also see this as an opportunity to raise your taxes, arguing that the cost of defense is high. You are a person who lives in the eye of a storm, a person who is constantly at the mercy of forces that are far beyond your control. The world outside your village is a brutal, chaotic place, and you are a person who must survive it, not with strength or power, but with quiet courage and a deep-seated resilience. After a long, wearying day, the one thing that truly belongs to you is the quiet power of storytelling. In your home, after the fire is lit and the thin gruel has been eaten, you and the other women of the village gather to share tales. These are not grand stories of knights and kings, they are the stories of your people, of your ancestors, of the land itself. These are the oral histories, the folk tales, and the songs that keep history and hope alive in a world that seeks to erase you. You are a storyteller, a person whose job is to keep the past from being forgotten. A fundamental historical fact is that oral storytelling was the primary method of education and cultural transmission in societies with low literacy rates. It was through these stories that children learned about their history, their religion, and their place in the world. A quirky tidbit is that people often used rhyming verses and songs to make the stories easier to remember and to pass on to the next generation. This is how many of the famous ballads and folk tales of the Middle Ages were born. A core scholarly debate revolves around the accuracy and reliability of these oral traditions. How much of it was factual history, and how much was creative embellishment? For you, the distinction is moot. The stories are true in a way that goes beyond mere facts. They are emotionally true. They tell you about the resilience of your people, about the struggle and the survival of 1,000 years. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the Lord's son might have a book to learn from, but you have the memories of 1,000 mothers. It's a truth you all know intimately. The stories you tell are not just for the children. They are for you, too. They are a way of making sense of the world, of finding meaning in a life that is often meaningless. You tell stories of old pagan gods, of mischievous fairies, and of brave serfs who outsmarted their cruel lords. These stories are a form of quiet rebellion, a way of imagining a different world, a world where you have power and agency. They are a way of keeping your spirit alive, even when your body is tired and your heart is heavy. The songs you sing are a different kind of storytelling. They are a form of communal memory, a way of remembering the good times and the bad. The songs of the harvest are filled with joy and hope, while the songs of the winter are filled with sorrow and longing. These songs are a soundtrack to your life, a way of expressing the emotions that you are not allowed to express in a world that demands your silent obedience. You are a person who lives in a world of silence, but you are also a person who sings, a person who finds a way to make her voice heard. As the fire dies down, you finish your story. The children are asleep, their dreams filled with the brave heroes and the cunning fairies of your tales. You are tired, but you are also filled with a quiet sense of purpose. You are not just a serf. You are a keeper of stories, a person who holds the past in her hands and passes it on to the future. You are a link in an unbroken chain, a person who knows that even in the darkest of times, a story can be a source of light. This quiet, powerful act of storytelling is your greatest defense, your greatest strength, and your greatest gift. It is a reminder that you are not just a person who works, you are a person who remembers. The idea of a wedding in medieval times is a far cry from the romantic ceremonies you might be familiar with. For you, a serf, marriage is not a celebration of love, but a practical arrangement, a social and economic contract between two families. Your marriage is arranged by your parents, with the Lord's permission, a permission that is not free. You must pay a fine, known as a merchet, to your lord in order to get married. This is a tax on your very existence, a way for the lord to profit from the choices of his serfs. It's a foundational historical fact that arranged marriages were the norm in medieval society, especially for the lower classes, where the union was a way of securing alliances and combining resources. Love was not a prerequisite for marriage. It was a luxury that only the upper classes could afford. A quirky detail is that a woman could not legally be forced to marry someone she absolutely despised, but the pressure to comply with her family's wishes was immense, and a refusal could lead to social ostracism and a potential fine for her family. There is a significant scholarly debate about the role of affection in these marriages. Did love grow over time, or were they simply a cold, unfeeling business transaction? For you, the answer is personal and complex. You may not love your husband when you marry him, but you learn to love him, a love born of shared struggle and mutual respect. You are a team, a unit of two people working together to survive in a brutal world. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the first year of marriage is like a bad harvest. You just have to hope it gets better next year. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. The wedding ceremony itself is a simple, low-key affair. There are no fancy dresses or elaborate feasts. The priest blesses the union, and you and your husband exchange a few simple promises. The real ceremony is a social one, a gathering of your families and your neighbors to celebrate the new union. There might be a small feast with some food and ale, but it's nothing like the extravagant celebrations you see in stories. It's a pragmatic affair, a way of announcing to the village that you are now a family unit, a unit that can be taxed and controlled by the Lord. Your new life as a wife is simply an extension of your old life as a serf. You have the same duties, the same hard labor, and the same constant struggle. But you also have a partner, a person to share the burdens with, a person to love and be loved by. You and your husband work the fields together, share the same small hut, and raise your children together. The responsibilities of child rearing are shared, a vital part of your survival. This marriage, this social contract, is also a way of ensuring your servitude is passed down to the next generation. Your children will be born into the same system, the same life of hard labor and oppression. They will also be a part of the Lord's property, a source of future labor and future taxes. Your marriage is a link in a long chain, a chain that binds you to the land and to the will of your Lord. It is a quiet, heartbreaking reality, but it is a reality you must live with every single day. While your life is largely confined to the fields and the village, there are times when your tasks take you into the forest that borders the Lord's land. The forest is a world of its own, a dark, mysterious place filled with both danger and opportunity. It is a place that you, a serf, are technically not allowed to enter, as all of the forest and its resources belong to the Lord. But necessity is a harsh master, and sometimes you must risk the Lord's wrath to survive. Your tasks in the forest might include gathering firewood for the long winter, or foraging for wild berries, mushrooms, and herbs to supplement your meager diet. It's a foundational historical fact that forests were a vital resource for medieval peasants, providing not just wood for fuel and building but also food and medicinal plants. However, these resources were strictly controlled by the Lord through a system of forest laws. A quirky tidbit is that the punishment for poaching a deer from the Lord's forest was often more severe than the punishment for stealing food, as the deer was considered a symbol of the Lord's power and prestige. The scholarly community is still divided on the true extent of these forest laws and how strictly they were enforced. Were they a constant, daily threat, or were they more a deterrent for serious poaching? For you, the answer is a low-level, constant fear. You enter the forest with a sense of trepidation, your senses on high alert. You listen for the sounds of the Lord's foresters, the men who patrol the woods and enforce his laws. You are a person who lives in a state of quiet disobedience, a person who must break the law to survive. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the Lord's deer may be his property, but the mushrooms belong to God. It's a defiant truth you all hold close. Your knowledge of the forest is a form of quiet power. You know which plants are edible and which are poisonous. You know which trees burn the best and which streams are the cleanest. This knowledge, passed down from your mother and grandmother, is a vital part of your survival. You are an expert at foraging, a person who can see a meal or a medicine where others see only a forest. You are a person who knows how to read the signs of the land, how to track an animal, and how to find your way back home in the dark. The forest is also a place of superstition and folklore. It is the home of fairies, goblins, and other mythical creatures. You might leave a small offering of bread or a shiny rock for the spirits of the forest, a quiet prayer for protection. These acts are a way of acknowledging that there are forces at play in this world that are beyond your control, forces that you must appease in order to survive. You are a person who lives in a world of both natural and supernatural dangers, a world where the line between the two is thin and often blurred. As you return from the forest, your back aching under the weight of a bundle of firewood, you feel a sense of both triumph and relief. You have survived another day, another brush with the Lord's law, another quiet act of defiance. You are a person who lives on the edge, a person who must constantly negotiate with the powerful and the unknown. You are a serf, but you are also a survivor, a person who knows how to find strength in the wild, and how to find a small bit of freedom in a world of chains. Your life as a serf is a world of constant obedience, but even in a world of chains there are small, subtle ways to resist. You learn the silent language of rebellion, a quiet form of defiance that is not about open revolt but about small, non-violent acts of subversion. This is a form of power that is not recognized by the Lord, a power that you and the other women of the village share. It is a way of reclaiming a tiny bit of your humanity in a world that seeks to deny you any. A well-known historical fact is that peasant resistance was often passive and subtle, as open rebellion was a death sentence. Peasants would feign illness, work slowly, or break tools as a way of subtly protesting their conditions. This was not a coordinated rebellion. It was a series of individual acts of defiance that added up to a form of quiet resistance. A quirky detail is that serfs would sometimes leave small, symbolic items, like a broken hoe or a bit of spoiled food, at the manor house as a way of expressing their discontent without having to say a word. Scholars continue to debate the effectiveness of this passive resistance. Was it a truly effective way of changing the system, or was it simply a way for serfs to let off steam without actually accomplishing anything? For you, the answer is personal and complex. It is not about changing the system, it is about surviving it. It is about maintaining your dignity in a world that seeks to strip you of it. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that if you work slowly enough, the Lord might think the crops are growing in reverse. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. Your acts of quiet rebellion are often about protecting your family. You might accidentally drop some grain on the ground while harvesting, a small bit of food that you and your children can glean later. You might forget to mention a sick pig to the bailiff, a pig that your family can butcher for food. You are a person who lives a double life, a life of outward obedience and a life of quiet defiance. This is a form of survival, a way of bending the rules without breaking them. The other women of the village are your co-conspirators. You share a silent understanding, a quiet language of nods and glances that tells you when it is safe to speak and when it is time to be silent. You are a part of a quiet sisterhood of resistance, a group of women who, despite their lack of power, find a way to fight back. You are not a warrior, but you are a fighter. You are not a hero, but you are a survivor. You are a person who, despite everything, refuses to give up. As you perform your acts of quiet rebellion, you feel a sense of empowerment, a small flicker of hope in an otherwise dark world. It is a reminder that you are not just a tool, not just a resource, but a person with a will of her own. You are a serf, but you are also a person who, in her own small way, is fighting back. This quiet, powerful act of defiance is a vital part of your existence, a reminder that your spirit, even if your body is tired, is not yet broken. As the sun's warmth fades from the fields, you prepare for the harshest part of the year, the long, dark nights of winter. This season is a test of your resilience, a brutal period of cold, hunger, and isolation. The land that once gave you life is now a frozen, unforgiving landscape. The work doesn't stop, but it changes. The focus shifts from the fields to sheer survival. The constant struggle against the cold and the gnawing hunger is a form of warfare, a battle that you must fight every single day. A well-established historical fact is that winters were a time of great hardship for medieval peasants, with food becoming scarce and the threat of starvation a very real possibility. The summer's abundance is a distant memory, and you must rely on the food you stored away, the hard bread, the salted vegetables, and the meager bit of cheese you managed to save. A quirky detail is that during the winter, people would often spend more time indoors, and this was a time for communal activities like storytelling, mending clothes, and carding wool. The long, dark nights, while cold, were also a time for community. A crucial scholarly debate revolves around how resilient medieval peasant communities were during these harsh winters. Did they always pull together and help each other, or did the desperation of the season lead to conflict and a breakdown of social bonds? For you, the answer is a bit of both. You and the other women of the village huddle together for warmth, sharing stories and food. But there is also a quiet, unspoken fear. The fear that someone else's hunger might become your own. A gentle joke that might be shared is that in the winter, the Lord doesn't have to worry about a serf running away. They're too busy trying not to freeze in their own homes. Your hovel, once a place of meager comfort, is now a cold, drafty prison. The fire is your only source of warmth, and you must be careful with your firewood, a precious resource that you spent the autumn gathering. The smoke fills the air, making your eyes water and your throat sore, but it is a necessary evil. You and your family huddle together for warmth, your bodies a small defense against the biting cold. Sleep is a constant struggle, a battle against the cold that seems to seep into your very bones. The isolation of winter is a different kind of hardship. The roads are often impassable, and the Lord's men are less likely to patrol. The world outside your village is a vast, empty expanse of snow and ice. You are cut off from the rest of the world, a small community huddled together against a force of nature that is both beautiful and terrifying. This isolation, while a source of fear, is also a source of quiet strength. You are a community, and you rely on each other for survival. You share what little food you have. You help each other with tasks, and you offer each other comfort. As the winter drags on, you begin to feel a quiet desperation, a longing for the sun's warmth and the feel of the earth under your hands. You are a creature of the land, and in the winter, you are a creature out of your element, but you are also a survivor, a person who knows how to endure, how to wait, and how to hope. You know that spring will eventually come, and with it, the promise of a new harvest, a new cycle of life. And in this knowledge you find a small bit of strength, a quiet resilience that will carry you through the long, dark nights of winter. The idea of escape is a persistent, gnawing thought, a flicker of hope that is both a comfort and a source of danger. You are a serf, bound to the land, but you have heard stories of a different life, a life in the cities. The medieval world, while largely rural, had thriving urban centres, and these cities had a different set of rules. The most important rule, a rule that you cling to with a quiet desperation, is that if a serf could live in a city for a year and a day without being caught by their lord, they would become a free person. This is the fabled path to freedom, a narrow, treacherous road that you sometimes dream of taking. A foundational historical fact is that medieval cities often offered a path to freedom for serfs, as city charters provided legal protection against lords reclaiming their runaway peasants. The growth of these urban centres and the need for labour gave serfs a slim chance to escape their bondage. A quirky detail is that the phrase "city air makes a man free" was a common saying in medieval times, a testament to the power and allure of urban life. There is a long-standing scholarly debate about how successful these escapes truly were. Were they a common occurrence, or were they a rare and often deadly gamble? For you, the answer is a daily, low-level calculation. The journey to a city would be incredibly dangerous. You would have to travel through forests and along roads that are patrolled by the Lord's men. You would have to leave behind your family, a choice that would be a source of immense guilt and heartbreak. And even if you made it to a city, you would have to find a way to survive for a year and a day without being discovered. It is a gamble, a roll of the dice that could end in freedom or death. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the best way to escape is to be so dirty and poor that no one would want to claim you. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. The lure of the city is a constant presence in your life. You have heard stories of the bustling markets, the grand churches, and the different kinds of work available. You imagine a life where you are not bound to the land, a life where you can choose your own path. You imagine a life where your children are not born into servitude, a life where they have a chance at a future. This dream, this quiet hope, is a vital part of your survival. It is a reminder that there is a world beyond the fields and the manor house, a world where things are different, a world where freedom is possible. But the reality of your life is a constant drag on this dream. You have children to care for, a husband to help, and a community that you are a part of. The idea of leaving them behind is a pain that is almost unbearable. You are not a person who can simply walk away. You are a person who is bound by 1,000 different ties, a person who is a part of a community, a person whose life is intertwined with the lives of the people she loves. The choice to escape is a choice between your own freedom and the safety and well-being of your family. It is a choice you cannot make, a choice that you can only dream of. The possibility of escape is a source of hope, but also a source of quiet sorrow, a reminder of the things you cannot have and the choices you cannot make. Amidst the relentless grind of your life, there is one place where you can find a temporary, peaceful escape from your reality: the church. The small, stone chapel on the edge of the village, with its simple wooden pews and its flickering candles, is a different world from the smoky chaos of your hovel and the brutal reality of the fields. Here, you are not a serf, not a labourer, but a soul seeking solace. The air inside is cool and still, and the smell of old stone and beeswax is a welcome change from the smells of your daily life. It's a foundational historical fact that the parish church served as a central hub for village life, offering a sense of community, a place for spiritual reflection, and a source of social stability. The church was not just for worship, it was also a meeting place, a place for important announcements, and a place of sanctuary for those in need. A quirky detail is that churches often had a clock, a rare and valuable item, and the ringing of the church bell was the primary way that people in the village kept track of time. There is a long-standing scholarly debate about the extent to which the church truly provided a sanctuary for serfs. While a church was a place of spiritual refuge, it was also a part of the feudal system, a powerful landowner that demanded tithes, a tax on your crops. For you, the answer is a complex one. The church offers you a moment of quiet peace, a time to pray, and to feel a sense of connection to a world beyond your own. But it is also a reminder of the power of the institutions that control your life. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the church may offer you a piece of heaven, but the Lord still owns the piece of earth you stand on. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. Your time in the church is a time for quiet reflection. You pray for a good harvest, for the health of your family, and for the souls of your ancestors. You light a small candle, a small flicker of hope in the immense darkness of your world. You listen to the priest's sermons, even if you can't understand the Latin. The words themselves are a kind of music, a beautiful, mysterious sound that lifts your spirit. You are a person who lives a life of immense physical hardship, but you are also a person with a spiritual life, a life of faith and hope. The church also offers a sense of community. You see your neighbors, your friends, and your family, and you feel a sense of belonging. The quiet solidarity of the women kneeling in prayer, their heads bowed in reverence, is a powerful and comforting sight. You are all in this together, all of you seeking solace and comfort in a world that offers so little of it. The church is a place where you can find a sense of shared identity, a sense of shared purpose. As you leave the church, you feel a sense of calm, a quiet peace that will carry you through the rest of the day. The world outside is just as harsh, the work just as demanding, but you have had a moment of respite, a moment of connection to a world beyond your own. The church is not an escape from your reality. It is a way of enduring it. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is still a small bit of light, a small bit of hope. In a world that seeks to isolate and dominate you, the bonds you share with the other women of the village are your greatest strength. You are a part of a quiet, powerful sisterhood, a community of women who share the same struggles, the same fears, and the same quiet triumphs. This is a support system that is not recognized by the Lord, a source of strength that exists outside of the feudal system. This is your true family, the people who will help you when you are in need, who will offer you a moment of comfort when you are in despair, and who will share a laugh with you in a world that offers so little to laugh about. It's a foundational historical fact that female solidarity and community networks were essential for the survival of medieval peasant women. They worked together in the fields, shared childcare responsibilities, and passed down vital knowledge about herbal medicine and folk remedies. A quirky detail is that these women's networks were often seen with suspicion by male authority figures, who viewed them as a potential source of dissent or even witchcraft. There is a long-standing academic debate about the true extent of this female solidarity. Was it a powerful, unified force, or was it simply a practical arrangement born of necessity? For you, the answer is a simple one. The other women of the village are your lifeline. They are the people you go to when a child is sick, when a crop has failed, or when you are simply too tired to go on. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that a man may be the head of the house, but a woman is the head of the village. It's a truth you all know intimately. Your work in the fields is a communal activity, a time when you and the other women can talk, share stories, and offer each other support. You are not just working, you are a part of a community, a part of a shared experience. The quiet strength of the women working together, their bodies a testament to their resilience, is a powerful and comforting sight. You are a person who lives in a world of immense loneliness, but you are also a person who is never truly alone. The women of the village are also the keepers of knowledge. They are the ones who know which plants are edible and which are poisonous. They are the ones who know how to brew ale and how to bake bread. They are the ones who know how to make a poultice for a wound and how to cast a charm for good luck. This knowledge, passed down through generations, is a source of immense power, a power that the Lord and his men do not have. You are a person who lives in a world without books, but you are also a person who is a part of a vast, unwritten library of knowledge. The bonds you share with the other women of the village are a form of quiet rebellion, a way of creating a world for yourselves that is outside of the feudal system. It is a world of shared stories, shared food, and shared support. It is a world where you are not just a serf, but a person with a community, a person with a voice, and a person with a sense of belonging. This sisterhood is your greatest defense, your greatest strength, and your greatest gift. It is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, you are not alone. In the end, all of your work, your quiet resistance, and your moments of shared joy exist under the shadow of one immutable truth. Your life, your family, and your fate are ultimately in the hands of your Lord. His authority is absolute, a power that is both a source of stability and a source of immense oppression. He is the master of your life, the person who decides how much you will work, how much you will pay in taxes, and how your children will live. There is no appeal, no recourse, and no escape from his will. This is the central, unshakable reality of your existence. It is a well-established historical fact that the Lord's authority was a cornerstone of the feudal system, and his control over the serfs was near total. He owned the land you lived on, the tools you used, and a significant portion of the crops you grew. A quirky detail is that a serf could not even marry a person from a different manor without the Lord's permission, a law that was meant to prevent the Lord from losing his valuable labor to a rival. A core scholarly debate revolves around the psychological impact of this absolute authority. Did it create a sense of security, a feeling that you were a part of a larger, more stable system, or did it foster a constant, low-level anxiety and resentment? For you, the answer is a complex mix of both. You are grateful for the Lord's protection from outside threats, but you are also constantly afraid of his power. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the Lord's will is like a sudden summer storm. You can't predict it, and you can't stop it. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. The Lord's authority is everywhere. It's in the bailiff's demands for taxes, in the steward's orders for work, and in the laws of the manor court. You are a person who lives in a constant state of deference, a person who must always be aware of her place in the social hierarchy. You must bow your head when the Lord rides by. You must speak with respect to his men, and you must never, ever question his authority. This is not a life of freedom. It is a life of constant performance, a life of being a serf every single moment of every single day. The most brutal part of the Lord's authority is his ability to separate your family. While it was not as common as in other forms of slavery, the Lord could, in theory, sell or give away a serf. He could also force a family to move to a different part of his estate, a move that would be devastating for your family and your community. This is a constant, low-level fear, a fear that at any moment the Lord could make a decision that would change your life forever. As you lie in your straw mattress, the sounds of your family's breathing a small comfort, you feel the weight of the Lord's authority. You are not a person who owns her own life. You are a person who is owned. You are a part of a system that is designed to keep you a serf forever, a system that you are powerless to change. This is the ultimate, inescapable reality of your existence. But even in this reality, you are a person with a will, a person with a spirit, and a person who, in her own small way, refuses to be broken. The final, and perhaps most heartbreaking realization of your life as a serf is that your servitude is not your own alone. It is a legacy, a condition that you will pass on to your children. The very act of having a family is an act of perpetuating the system that binds you. The children you love so fiercely, the children you work so hard to protect, will grow up to face the same struggles, the same hardships, and the same quiet oppression that you do. This is your inheritance, not a piece of land or a bag of coin, but a life of chains. It is a well-documented historical fact that serfdom was a hereditary status, passed down from parent to child. The children of serfs were also serfs, bound to the same land and the same lord. A quirky tidbit is that in some manors, a lord could demand a special tax, known as a heriot, when a serf died. This tax was usually paid in the form of the best animal the serf owned, a final, brutal reminder of the lord's authority. A central academic debate is whether serfs saw this inheritance as a tragedy, or simply as the natural order of things. Did they mourn the loss of their children's freedom, or did they accept it with a quiet resignation? For you, the answer is a daily, quiet sorrow. You look at your children's small, hopeful faces, and you know that their future is already written. You are a mother, but you are also a person who is giving birth to new serfs. A gentle joke that might be shared among the women is that the Lord's children may inherit his wealth, but yours will inherit his work. It's a bitter truth, but a truth nonetheless. Your life as a mother is a constant lesson in survival. You teach your children how to work the fields, how to find food in the forest, and how to be quiet and invisible when the Lord's men are around. You teach them not with words, but with your actions, with the calloused hands that work for them, with the weary body that toils for their survival. You are giving them the only gift you can, the gift of knowledge, the knowledge that will help them survive in a world that is designed to break them. You are a person who lives in a world without hope, but you are also a person who, in her own quiet way, is trying to create a better future for her children. The idea of a different life for your children is a fantasy, a dream that you can only afford to have in the darkest moments of the night. You dream of a world where they are free, a world where they can choose their own path, a world where they can live a life without chains. But you know that this is just a dream, a beautiful, impossible fantasy. The reality is that they will be serfs, just like you, just like your parents, and just like their children will be. This is the tragic, unchangeable reality of your existence. You are a person who lives a life of immense love, but you are also a person who, in her own small way, is passing on a legacy of sorrow. As the final moments of the day draw to a close, you find yourself back in your hovel. The fire has died down to a faint glow, and the sounds of your family's breathing fill the quiet. The exhaustion is a physical weight, a deep, soul-crushing weariness that settles into your bones. But in this quiet moment, you find a small, bittersweet sense of peace. You have survived another day. You have fed your family. You have worked the Lord's fields. And you have, in your own small way, resisted the system that binds you. This is a life of endless hardship, but it is also a life of quiet victories. You are a person who, despite everything, has found a way to endure. The long-held historical idea is that medieval peasant life was defined by this constant cycle of toil and survival, a relentless rhythm that left little room for personal comfort or luxury. Your life is a testament to this, a never-ending series of tasks that are both necessary and oppressive. A quirky detail is that a serf's day was often so long and so filled with work that the time for sleeping was considered a form of stolen time, a precious commodity that was taken back from the Lord. Academics are still divided on the exact psychological state of a serf at the end of the day. Were they filled with despair, or did they find a quiet sense of satisfaction in their work? For you, it's a mix of both. There is a deep, bone-weary sadness that comes from a life of hard labor and oppression. But there is also a quiet pride, a sense of accomplishment that comes from feeding your family and keeping them safe. A gentle joke that might be shared is that while the Lord gets to sleep on a feather bed, you get to sleep on the satisfaction of a day's hard work. It's a truth you hold close, a small comfort in a brutal world. You lie down on your straw mattress, The aches and pains of the day a symphony in your body. But as you close your eyes, you feel a small sense of gratitude. You have your family, you have your community, and you have your quiet, defiant spirit. These are the things that the Lord cannot take from you, the things that make you a person, not a tool. You are a serf, but you are also a survivor, a person who has found a way to live, a person who, despite everything, has found a way to hope. And as the final embers of the fire die down and the darkness envelops your small hut, you can hear the quiet sounds of the village, the distant bleating of a sheep, the soft rustle of the wind, the low hum of a distant song. You are a part of this world, a person who, despite everything, belongs. Your life is a hard one, but it is your life, and as you drift off to sleep, you hold on to the hope that tomorrow will bring a new day, a new set of challenges, and a new set of quiet victories. Hello, my friend. As the fire dies down to embers and the world outside falls silent, let's take a moment to reflect on the journey we've shared tonight. We have walked in the shoes of a medieval serf, a life of relentless labor, quiet defiance, and fierce love. We have seen a world that is both brutal and beautiful, a world that is defined by the turning of the seasons and the unwavering power of a single lord. But more than that, we have seen the strength of the human spirit, the quiet resilience of a woman who, despite everything, finds a way to survive. The world we've visited is a far cry from our own, a world without electricity, without modern medicine, and without the simple freedoms we take for granted. But it is also a world that reminds us of the power of community, the strength of family, and the quiet dignity of a life lived with purpose. So as you drift off to sleep, let the imagery of the medieval village fade, let the sounds of the night recede, and find comfort in the fact that you, like the serf we've been with, have the strength to face whatever the morning brings. Sleep well, my friend,